I'm going to start this project with some pretty ugly looking pieces of wood. I cut these out of a pallet, and these are oak. I don't bother trying to take the nails out just because it's way too much work, especially with oak. So here I have a couple of pieces, and I'm going to inspect them very carefully, and I notice here that there are some nails, so I'm going to cut that there and just not even deal with that. And then on this piece, which is just ugly, just really bad, it doesn't look like much at all. It has a nail in the end, so I'll take that out as well, and then we'll plane it. Well, I planed up that really ugly piece of wood, and now it really has some character. I really like these whorls in it and the knot, and it's got another beautiful knot on this side. It is a different shade than these others, and so I'm going to have to hold that aside and use some oak that is better matched. So I have a similar one here, got a nice knot in it, nice smaller knot with a whorl, and these really polish up nicely. So I'm going to use that as the front of the box, and then probably something a little more mundane for the back of the box. And then I have some extra just in case I'll need some sides. So next thing to do after we plane it is to make sure that we have a square edge. So there's an easy way to do that. I'll show you how to do. Here's how I square up some of this really bad edged wood. I made a nice parallel piece of MDF and put a clamping mechanism on it so that I can take my wood and I can place it in the clamp and place it just arbitrarily along the edge like this. Clamp it down nice and tight, and then with the fence being the square on this end, then anything I run in parallel with this MDF will cut it the same parallel. So all I need to do is edge it over just a little bit, raise my saw so that it will match the depth that I need to go, and now I have all the edges nice and square. I can just run these through the table saw and square up the other side. All right, I think this will be the front side of the box, and so what I'm going to do is do two things. I'm going to run a line approximately like this that we're going to cut out. This part's going to be cut out in a rabbet, and on the other side we're going to run a channel through here. So I'm going to hog out some material here and hog out the material up there so the rock can fit on the top, and I'll do that with all of our boards. All right, I ran these on the table saw, and you can see we got a channel on one side. This took 3 rips of an 1/8 inch blade to get it to be about 1/4 inch. And then on the other side, I did the rabbet. So ideally, I want to have the lip of the box be about that wide. So there's a finished piece. The hard part is trying to determine how big to make the box, and so I've got a piece of rock here that's been slabbed up, and I want to make sure I have the right size lip, so I'm going to run this down as far as I can where the lip is about correct, and I'm going to mark sides of this box like so. We have our side piece, and I've got a disc sander with a 45 fence. I'm going to run that so that I have a nice 45 on there. Now I have my 2 pieces, and I've put them back to back, and I'm going to put them on a flat surface and then check, and if they're both exactly the same distance on each end and they're 45s, I know those will be good sides for my box. So what I'm going to do is cut 2 other ones and do exactly the same thing. Just so long as two sides are exactly the same and the other two sides are exactly the same, you should have no problem putting a mitered joint together. So what I have are two pairs of sides that are exactly the same, and I'm just going to temporarily assemble it and check the joints on each corner, hold it together tightly, and I'm looking at it from the top, and it looks like we've got pretty decent flush corners. Check the bottom. Again, looks pretty good. I think we can work with that. You might have to go back and make sure you sanded it appropriately, that it's square. Sometimes you can get a little bit of an angle, but now I've got miter corners for each. So I planed a piece of oak for the bottom, and I'm going to just place the mock-up on top, make sure it's tight, and I'm going to scribe the bottom. Okay, that's the size. This is the size of the opening in the bottom. So what we want to do is make sure that that's a little bit bigger. So what I'll do is I'll just eyeball it and add a little lip to each side. We want enough lip so that it will be plenty, but not too much in the bottom to keep it nice and tight, but not overly big because we don't want it to be too big. So I'm going to go ahead on the bandsaw, cut this out and make a bottom for the box. Once I get the bottom cut, I put it in there. I want to check it one more time to make sure that all the sides will fit. Okay, initially there's nothing special here. I just use regular carpenter's glue and make sure I don't have a lot extra so that it has a lot of bleed out. So I'll get that started, put that in the right place, and do the same thing with the other sides. All right, here's the last part that is kind of different maybe, and I just find it saves a lot of time and effort. What I do is to take a little bit of CA glue and on the corner open up the glue joint, because it hasn't dried yet, and put a certain amount in and let it kind of drift down and let it squeeze out. I don't care about the squeeze out so much on the top. I can take care of that with a chisel later. And then what I'm going to do is going to hold it right where I want it securely, right, so the inside, I don't know if you can see this or not, so the inside matches, and then take my hardening agent and let it go ahead and gel, so that initially that will hold like a clamp that joint. Later, when the white glue takes over, then of course it has a longer lasting ability to hold the joint. So I'll do that, let that sit just a sec so that that can gel. There we go. So once I have the corners glued and tacked, basically, for forming the clamp, and same on the bottom, I haven't had to do that on the bottom except for one, we'll just let that sit and let the white glue take over, and we'll have a nice box joint when we're done. After the glue dries, the only thing I have to do is take a little bit of the surface glue off the top with a chisel, or I can sand it off or grind it out. It's not too bad, it clicks out pretty easily. And then sand, and corners are nice and tight, and bevels look good. Corners are sweet. And now all I have to do is sand the box and fit the top. All right, I have my box sanded at 120, so my stone I roughed out and it fits in nicely in the top. So the next steps are to polish the rock and to polish the wood. Here's our final product after polished with Tripoli, 240 and then 400 sandpaper and then Tripoli. You can see what happened to those beautiful burls. and the rest of the box. Here's the other side. That's a beautiful side to that box. And then the top is nicely fitted. There's our joints on the edge. And then I made a little handle for the top. So this is kind of like a tee box. So I waxed it in and out and made something beautiful out of a piece of pallet wood that was pretty stinky.